author, and I think I just wanted to really just go off the cuff and just start this series dealing with my journey as an author as a whole. I haven't published any books or anything of the sort, but I'm working on my first book. So I just wanted to kind of document the journey as a whole and what inspired it, what added on to it, so on and so forth, and just to really just go on a path and the journey of like the beauties of just being an author or really a writer. Today, I just wanted to really just talk about what got me into it and what led me to creating a book now. So let's get to it. So I guess what really started me necessarily loving and just like curating like something that is just on paper is I guess really like the start of my spiritual journey. I'm spiritual. I'm a part of I'm a part of a community, and you probably will hear like some jingling and all that stuff going on. It's because I'm wearing some medallions on me right now, and I just didn't want to flash it or let it get in the way as I move, so I just tucked it in for right now. But I'm a part of a spiritual community, and even before I got with them, I often had very vivid dreams, very vivid recordings where I come from, but recordings wise, dreams equals recordings and all that. But this a breakdown dealing with that. But I come from this community in which, like, we share a lot dealing with our dreams, and even beforehand, I had friends that I spoke to about my dreams slash recordings, and they were always like very vivid. And ever since I was just a kid, so part of it could, be parts of my imagination, and other parts could just be something that is much more. But I always enjoy drawing and creating characters, giving them backstories and that kind of stuff, which led me eventually to D&D. And then when that led me to D&D, and I took a very, I guess, more so like given to me premise or like background as far as like what my character will be and that kind of stuff. I took it to a whole another level. And that's when I realized that, you know what, maybe I do have something that is in this, especially with um, my dreams and recordings uh, popping out like this, and I'm able to retain so much of it, and I'm documenting them and all. And I had so much fun just doing so. So I think that it was only really right for me to become an author or a writer in a sense. So I think that's just a cool part of life, going through it. But I kind of just wanted to talk about the all like the manners of the start of like how I also do my creative like process, I guess, with writing. I started to I started to see that I'm able to take one concept, or like one word or single word to be more precise, uh concepts of words, and then just kind of like combine them, and then take that and I'm like, okay, cool, what would this be as like a character, what would this be as um as a part of like the storyline, what setting would it be placed in. And that's essentially how like I write down most of my ideas. I just take a notepad, or I just go into my phone, type up a whole bunch of stuff dealing with, okay, this is the kind of world I want to build. This is the um if it's not pertaining to the world, then what is this over here? I'm currently in a campaign dealing with D&D, in which I DM for the first time, and I thought that I didn't have the talent or anything of the sort for it, but eventually, eventually, I was able to craft a world using simply the backstories or the session zeros of the characters, you know? And I didn't think that I would be able to craft a world around that at all. To give you a little tidbit of the campaign, because I'm not shy of it. Tidbit of the campaign is, well, at least with the first story, session zero, it dealt with Neanderthals in the prehistoric days, like, well, pre-prehistoric days, in which he lived in a tribe. And in this particular tribe, he was able to he was able to see how the environment like formed. They were advanced somewhat, and they were under the god Anasi. And Anasi is a storytelling or weaver of stories of sort, and he represents knowledge and wisdom in the African culture. And uh, I don't think he's a Orisha. I don't think he is. I'm not really sure at this time. So you can edify me if he is. But Anasi as a whole is worshipped under his tribe. And then eventually he realizes that he's the chief's son there. Uh, and the chief himself is very ill tempered. Now, beforehand, this is an element that he wanted to throw in, that he was like a regressor, you know, and being a regressor means that is one who has passed or lived in a certain timeline as a whole, just lived in a timeline uh, in which it could be like unforgiving, or it could be like I lived in this particular timeline, now I know the future, and then I died and I went back into the past. It's become a trope over the years, but definitely. So he wanted that at first, in which I gave him a whole separate timeline, did like a little bit dealing with that before he got there. So he already had a ton of anger, animosity towards like his family and all. And then over time, he realized the reasons why, the true reasons why um, he hated his family so much was not really them, but it was because of the enemy that was there. And the enemy as a whole is what drove the separation. And because he lost his twin brothers, he wasn't a twin, but like they were twins, and they died and whatnot due to an attack, not from like another tribe, but it was on a hunt, and it was this giant python that that killed them, and then the father put in a final blow and carried the bodies of his children back, along with the body of the serpent that was probably a couple blocks long, maybe. And I would say like at most like 4, 5 blocks long. So it's the cool thing about D&D is that you're able to do that kind of stuff and write those sorts of characters in. But uh, the thing is, like from there, we created the whole backstory dealing with that, and eventually how he got to the underworld. Yes, the underworld, and the particular one is Hades, Hades underworld, and I had to create a whole nother setting. And sometimes it's on the fly, sometimes it's on in writing, you know. But for the most part, I I seem to have the capabilities to be able to just do most things on the fly, most things on the fly. So once I was able to create the that side, I was able to go through my other 3 characters or so that I had to work on and actually create craft different backstories on, and they were all different. The whole point of saying this is that sometimes you are given, a list of things that you can work with, and then you can craft a world with the setting and everything, right? But if you don't have that, what do you do as a writer? What do you do as an author? And I just do when I researched a lot of videos. I can't really shout out the names right now because it's been a while. It's been about 6 months, particularly with the videos that I specifically watched. But um, I watched like videos dealing with like Blood Meridian, for instance. Uh, really good book. I watched videos dealing with like Dostoevsky, and sorry if I butchered his name, but dealing with him. And uh, there's another one dealing with Big Brother. I can't tell you the date or like the title of it and all that, right? I think it's like 1985 or something like that, or 85. Um, but just those particular like books and like short stories and that kind of stuff was able to help me configure certain things that were just going on in my head. And it's like, okay, how can I actually give a certain terror to my players, or how can I give a certain uh, setting to the book that I'm creating? How can I bring about this result, or how can I throw in my humor dealing with it? And I think about all of those factors, and all of those would be videos in time and all, but it it does take a little bit finagling in order to actually get that down. But from what I seen, like just started off with like my book. Again, I don't really have a title, but dealing with my book, I had to do a lot of brainstorming. There's two particular like books that I guess I wanted to make. One of them didn't really make the cuts because I'm like, that still needs a little bit more work. I've seen it done so many times because I personally don't really like um tropes or cliches and that kind of stuff, right? I think it's silly to believe that someone who just started 2 years ago or in a timeline or something like that is able to fight someone who has been alive for eons. You know what I mean? Been alive for eons and gained so much power for eons and all that, right? Or has set up themselves to be geniuses, and then you outsmart them uh through like one plan because you thwarted their plan and that kind of stuff. I don't really think anyone who's a real genius will let an element of surprise be the main factor for their downfall as a villain. I don't really see that being a possibility as a whole. I think if you're a real genius as someone who's evil and whatnot, you would have power. You would have so much networking. You would be so far in the background, or you'll be even in the front, and you'll have the full confidence that you cannot touch me as a whole. And that's how I base my villains as a whole. It's like uh straight up, like you cannot touch me because just because you gained this power dealing with this god, or you gain this particular amulet of protection and spell book grimoire and all that, right? You're able to um thwart or thrash, like I believe you'll be able to thrash armies. I believe that you'll be able to really maybe knock them a little bit, right? But I don't believe that, hey, you're going to 100% win unless you do something else. Like you actually fully use your brain, use all your resources and everything in order for you to eventually eventually win. Because that's the truth. That's our reality. Is that it takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of backing. It takes a lot of movement, a lot of hustle in order for us to get to a particular result, right? And yeah, if a opponent is so high up, and if a opponent is so not really vast, but just someone who just seems to be untouchable in all manners, how can you become untouchable? Uh how can you get at him, or how can you get at this particular individual? And rather or not, if you find out that in a twist that it wasn't even a person at all, maybe it's just a program, and such as like what is it? I have no mouth, but I must scream, something like that. It's a short story. It's an amazing short story. Um, but then you find out in there, spoiler and all that, right? You find out in there that it's really just, well, actually, it's in the very beginning, really, but it's an AI system. It's an AI system in which, like, I don't know how you would be able to do anything because it already ruined the whole world. It already ruined the whole world. It already knows that it's on top. Yet there is factors within there that I noted, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting that the author put it in there. So I may talk about that too. But I think really when it just comes down to like starting a story, just like how this is the first video, the start of a story really comes from the process of brainstorming and what you can just like toss out there and whatnot, and what you can draw back in as a whole is what you can draw back in and what you can write down on paper and say that this is what the world is going to be. If you can't figure out what your world is going to be, then you can figure out the characters. If you can't figure out the characters, then put a setting. If you can't figure out the setting, then throw something in. And throw water, throw space, throw time as an element. Because all of those you can do something with it. Time could be eldritch. Like the sea could be pirates. The sea could be Aladdin and all that, right? It could be something like that, like with genies being in the water and all that, right? It could be Aquaman, you know. It could be something dealing with the land and the water having like issues as a whole, and you can make that in itself like elemental, or you can throw in titans being a part of that, because titans as a whole and all that just represented very particular concepts, and you can look them up, very particular concepts that they all had some form of similarities with, and some influence over, and you can literally make a whole sea versus land battle, or you can even go miniature. There's a whole universe that is literally within us. There's a whole universe that is in our skins and our bodies and all that, right? Single cell amoebas and all that, all this other stuff, right? You can literally get creative with the world that you want to create. And some authors, some writers have, some teams have actually came together and made that stuff, you know? So even if you just take a pantheon, right, you could just throw it out there and then literally say, what would happen if this pantheon went against this pantheon and all, right? And then, um, which I think they sort of did and all back then when it came down to like stick fighting, the stick fighter animations and that kind of stuff, right? You can literally just throw it out there, you know? So, hell, you can even do something with sound as a whole. And I may actually come up with something dealing with that, dealing with sound itself music itself. So yeah, you can just really just throw things to the wall, see if it sticks. And if it doesn't stick, why does it not stick? And on. And then just break down the elements dealing with that, because it may be something that you can use, right? Um, Also, um, you could get better at recalling your recording slash dreams. You know, recording slash dreams, like you may actually come up with a concept that you want to do in your dream. You may just look at it and be like, you know what? That's exactly what I want to do. That's exactly what I want as a whole when it comes down to like a character, like this particular person that I'm interacting with, right? Seems to be like the perfect fit for a main character and all, or a side character. It could be someone who's funny. I have recordings of like actually like recorded like voice recordings on my phone. Some are like an hour, some are 30 minutes, some are 15, you know, and I have some recordings that are just old that I haven't um really like translated over or anything like that, or really like scribed out as a whole, I have, and I just basically put like was it bullet little points and all that down in order for me to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do later. And all of that as a whole, I could create something out of it, and that just all came from a night, one night of me just laying my head on my pillow, counting zebras and all that. That's all it really took, is for me to count some zebras and all that, count some sheep, watch them hop over the fence and all. And then now I have a premise. Now I have music that I aspire to like listen to, and I could take that same music and you can use that as like the template for a fight. For instance, I listen to a lot of variety of music. I can listen to country, to hardcore, like rock. I can listen to blues. I love blues. I love blues and whatnot. I can't really get into jazz though, and my current view of blues is that it's better in person. And when I listen to certain music and all, it gets you, it has energy. Music has energy. So as you listen to more and more music, for instance, as your template, then you can go ahead and take that as a whole, and this helped to influence this fight scene. For instance, I created a very, very deadly fight scene by listening to Disturbed, Disturbed the band, and listening to what was it? It's the one with Indestructible on it. I think it's the first track listening. And when I listened to that track, and I listened to all the way up to like Criminal, I believe, that is on there. I believe Criminal, or like one after that one. And I know it was like halfway in the album, but when I listened to that particular album and those tracks and whatnot, I was able to create a very deadly fight scene, and uh, that's how in my campaign how the scholars were born, and the scholars are born from the stars, but um they're more like outside visitors as a whole, and they were championed of a sort. And then I took them, and when I created these scholars, and I created these people that were crowned in a way, uh, I created a whole boss battle dealing with literally a statue of one of them, not even the physical uh, form, I guess, or like the original of the scholar. And I was able to take that and create this huge fight scene in which my party, for the first time, believed that they were just going to die, and they had to pull one trick. They pulled two tricks. They did pretty good, and that they pulled two tricks in which they disarmed him of his main weapon, right? And then they called in for assistance by said like purifying the enemy's weapon and uh and kind of like delving into it. And I got a cleric that did that and whatnot. But he dove in a way into the weapon and was able to eventually find a god, god of sleep dream, knowledge, writing. I made him write Twilight, but uh, just a bit of lore. But he he dove in, asked that god for assistance, and the god gave the assistance, and he intervened with what was happening in that moment by stopping the process of uh like the outer gods from coming in, outer like eldritch like star beings from coming in, and keeping them out as a whole, and defeating the statue. They were able to get out of the burning church and that they were in, and the church was of Hades, and it was a worship place for Hades, but the statue was there. So it's a whole bunch of like, this is the result of me throwing stuff to the wall and seeing, okay, I got this idea right here. I got this music that I'm playing as a whole right here, and I'm like, okay, how can I build a fight scene for these guys? Because I know I have these character, I have this character, I have this character, and all that I created. But how can I create a fight scene with some pressure to it, with some pressure, some intensity, to almost feel as if that you're suffocating, and having them in an enclosed space that they cannot move, right? They can move around, and then having them fight against spirits and fight against this statue that's throwing these long range like lobbing attacks at them, and then scaring them when this said wizard gets very up close and fights them in combat. And uh uh and then I have an annoying enemy up top, blinking and moving through the shadows and all that, and attacking them from the rear. And how could you build an environment in which it feels perilous, and it feels as if like, if I make a wrong move, I will die, right? I took what I learned from that experience, and I'm like, okay, well, how can I translate that over to a book? How can I translate that over to a comic? And you could do that. Um, how can you translate it over to like something else that you do? Or how can you move? How can you actually like learn the lessons from this campaign, and then take that and you're like, you know what, this is how these people reacted. This is how this is how this was set up and whatnot. This is the premise of the next campaign, or this is the premise of my next book, and dealing with like the characters because I know them so well, right? And then you take that same template, and then you're like, okay, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this knowledge that I have, and I'm gonna see, does it translate well to the next work, and to the next work, and to the next work, and then like, how can I actually change it, you know? But I think tomorrow I may actually talk about that as well, and how can you actually change that over? How can you do the work on that side in order for you to completely understand what you should do next and all. But yeah, that's it for premise. That's it for the for episode one, I guess. dealing with this series. You're gonna see me a lot more. Uh, you're gonna see me on Instagram, Facebook, uh, YouTube wise, mainly YouTube. And yeah, check me out. And again, my name is Jalen Tucker. And yeah, have a good one.